This is the video review of the MIS-EDUCATION of the Negro. Due to the nature and the time that this book was written, I will use the same language as the author used in the book. Point 1. Education under outside control. The young Negro was taught to admire Hebrew, Greek, and Latin in history and in the schools and textbooks. The young Negro was taught that whites were superior to blacks in school. When asked by the students why the instructor would use such a textbook, he said he wanted them to get that point of view. And naturally, this teaching kills his ambitions and dooms him to crime and hopelessness, if he believes it. While the educated Negroes of that time had the attitude of contempt toward their own people, choosing to dismiss the less fortunate of their race as non-entities, and then taking their skills out of their own communities and into the service of others. Point 2. How did the education of the Negro take such a trend? In his words, their aim was to transform the Negro, not develop them, hinting at social engineering. In the school textbooks, all of the accomplishments in Africa were omitted. In history, we were never taught that Africa first domesticated the sheep, goat, and cow, developed the system of trial by jury, produced the first string instruments, discovered iron ore, and the Songhai Empire. Point 3. Failure to make a living. The Negroes of today, Mr. Woodson attests, are unable to employ one another, while the whites of that day would only hire the Negro when the whites were taken care of. What the Negroes are being taught does not bring their minds into harmony with life as they must face it. He felt the Negro was content being workers in certain industries without having the working knowledge behind those industries. The gossip and fear-mongering Negroes of that time, miseducated by the oppressors of race, always expect Negro businesses to fail anyways. Then they seize upon the unfavorable reports and are the first to spread the falsehoods and headlines of greatest Negro businesses fail, Negro business robbed by its staff, and the downfall of the Negro business. Then they are the first to stand by saying, "I told you so," justifying their inaction. Although the data shows the weak link is that they are not properly supported and do not grow strong enough to weather a crisis. Point 4. The new type of professional required. In his words, Negroes should study for professions for all the same reasons that members of other races do. Also on account of a special call to service for the lowly of their race. In other words, when going for public office, members of that race should stand for the more powerless of their race to attempt to uplift the race and fight for the rights instead of other self-serving agendas. He felt the Negro must be taught to think and develop businesses for themselves. I quote, "It is pathetic to see Negroes begging others for a chance as we have been doing lately. The Negro as a slave developed this sort of dependency. Now the Negro is facing the ordeal of either learning to do for self or die out gradually in the bread line in the ghetto." Mr. Woodson felt the solution to this poverty problem the Negro has faced in 1933 was dependency on white society to provide jobs and opportunities for the Negro. Although he ends with this quote, "The race will free itself from its exploiters just as soon as it decides to. No one else can accomplish this task for the race. It must plan to do for self." And this is the animated review of the MIS-EDUCATION of the Negro, written in 1933 by Carter G. Woodson. Thank you.